Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about what I think was the most exciting item to receive in our July BoxyCharm subscription, and that is the Blinc eyeshadow palette, specifically the Electric Eyes palette. So I have been playing around with this for a little over a week now because I really had some different ways I wanted to try it and different methods of application, different looks I was doing with it. And there is a big difference in this palette depending on how you use it, so I will get into that. But what I'm going to do, as I always do, is talk a little bit about the company. I'm going to talk a bit about the product itself, and then I am going to give you my review, show you swatches, explain a couple of different eye looks that I've been enjoying doing with this, including the one that I have on today. So for all of that, I will put timestamps down below so that you can jump forward if you want to watch certain parts of this. And if you enjoy these kinds of reviews that go a little bit more in depth into the company and the product, please give me a thumbs up. That always helps me out on my channel. And let's get into talking about Blinc. So Blinc is a company that you probably heard of in the same way that I have, and that is around their mascaras. They started the trend of doing mascaras that are tubing mascaras. I've not personally tried one of these myself, but there's a number of them on the market now, I believe. Blinc was the one who started them. So basically, instead of the product, the mascara being almost like just a black coating, like an ink on your eyelashes, instead it creates little tubes, and they're supposed to stay there, not flake, not smudge, nothing like that, until you remove them with, I think it's warm water, but it's supposed to be waterproof, it stays on, it's this whole thing. It's just a totally different idea of how to do mascara. So I saw a number of YouTube videos on that, sort of back when it was first coming out, and it looks very interesting. I haven't tried it yet, but it looks very interesting. So I was interested when I saw this come in my box because I had not known that they did anything other than mascara, and in fact they do, although mascara remains their staple. And everything that they actually do so far is still around the eyes. So I will put a link to their corporate website in the description box below, but basically they do everything to do with eyes now. So in addition to doing mascaras, they do eyeliner, they do eye primer, they have a eyebrow, it looks like a mascara one, like a gel, that kind of thing. And they have a couple of different eyeshadow palettes. They have one that looks like more of a neutral, everyday kind of palette. And then they have this Electric Eyes palette, which in my opinion is sort of more of a complementary palette to something that is more neutral and everyday. So their products are not inexpensive. In Canadian dollars, their mascaras are around $31.50, which is higher than Sephora level pricing in a lot of cases. There are some more expensive mascaras there, but it's going to be pricey in your budget. Liquid eyeliner is also just over $31 Canadian, and eyeshadow primer is also going to be $31.50 Canadian. Oh, and that other eyeshadow palette, the one that's more of an everyday kind of palette, is going to set you back $58.50 Canadian. So these are high level prices. It's not like luxury brand, it's not like Yves Saint Laurent or something like that, but it's going to be up there in terms of prices. The company is based in the US, in Florida, and if you read about their company, it's a lot of stuff about why they started making the mascara. That really is still the focus of their company, and it's what they are definitely best known for. Now, I always like to see this about a company is that they do have a page on their webpage about giving back, and they talk about encouraging their employees in volunteering, but they also talk about some of the charities that they give to, and there's a little blurb about it because they say they encourage you to think about giving to them as well. And they are well-known charities like the American Cancer Society, CARE, which does international development work, Children International, Doctors Without Borders, Environmental Defense, and a few others as well. So it's nice to see a company that is giving back to the community. I always appreciate that. Now let's start talking about the Electric Eyes palette in particular. In my opinion, this is a supplementary palette. It is all shimmer shades in here. They talk about it being all jewel shades. So it's not necessarily something, I'm not judging how you do your makeup. You can do entirely bright shimmer shades if you want. But for most people, this is probably going to be a supplementary palette, something that gives you that little sort of pop of color and shimmer in addition to other shadows that you have. It is 5 shades that are in here. You do get a nice little mirror in the palette, and I will be doing swatches of these a little bit later on for you so you can see the colors. There is dimethicone in here. The main ingredient is mica, but there is dimethicone as well. And all of these shades are vegan except for one that has carmine in it. So do be aware of that. If you are a vegan, it's not entirely vegan, this palette. If you are in the US, this palette is going to set you back $45 American. I would like to tell you the price this is in Canadian dollars, but it's actually not available yet on the Canadian site. When you go there, it says the page is not yet available. So I do believe this is very new, but judging from sort of the prices there, I do expect when this goes into Canadian dollars, it's going to be in the high 50s. So you do have to think these are going to be over $10 Canadian per shade if you buy this palette. So I don't know how it took me this long to notice this, because I only noticed it literally after I finished filming this review, and then I need to sit down and just film this little supplementary part to tuck back in here again. It's a BoxyCharm thing. Like, there's the BoxyCharm logo on there. That's probably why it's not up on the sites yet, that sort of thing. So that is probably why this is not something that you've seen before from Blinc, because it does look like it's a BoxyCharm partnership. They do describe this as being a long-wearing, color-rich eyeshadow palette featuring 5 creamy, ultra-pigmented shades. They include 5 luxurious metallic jewel tones combining intensity, elegance, and seduction for eyes that captivate. Let's now get into showing you some swatches of this before I get into my review of the palette. So we'll do some swatches here, and we're going to move from this side to this side, starting with this lightest sort of creamy shimmer shade here. Next, we're going into this very gold one, and these are very, very soft shades. Isn't that beautiful? This one right here that we're swatching next is very much a rose gold. Isn't that just gorgeous? Next up, we have this red jewel tone. And finally, this darkest shade, which is a shimmery brownish copper. Aren't those just absolutely gorgeous? My thoughts on this palette. I like this. I like this a lot. I have been reaching for this every day since I got it, trying it out in different ways. I've also had quite a few people in the last 2 videos, quite a few, I don't get that many comments, but I've had at least one person per video ask me what I'm wearing on my eyes, and it's been this. For the last few videos, I have been wearing shades from this palette. You do have to know how to work with this though, and let me talk you through that a little bit. The first day that I wore this, I think I just tried out like I usually would. The second day I thought I'm going to try doing it different ways on different sides of my face to see what lasts and what doesn't. And on one side I applied with a finger the shade without using any kind of eyeshadow primer, and then I did not set my face at the end. On the other side of my face I used an eyeshadow primer. I applied it with a brush that was dampened with setting spray, and then I did cover half of my face with setting spray. And through the day, I noticed that the side that did not have the primer and was not set with the setting spray, the color, I mean, I have hooded eyes, so my eyes move around a bit. The color faded a lot after about 3 to 4 hours. But the side that I had done the priming and done the setting on lasted beautifully for 8+ hours. And I know that because I wore it to work. So I think it was good for like 9 hours that day when I had done the priming and the setting. So then after that, I wanted to know, like, it was a huge difference between the two, what it was that was making that difference. So the next day I did the same thing when I just, applying with a finger, no primer, and the other side I used an eyeshadow primer and also my finger, so that I was taking the setting spray out of the equation. The eye with no primer did not last. The eye with primer lasted like crazy. And the last test I did was again the control eye with like nothing being done to it. And the other one I did not use an eyeshadow primer, but I did dampen a brush with setting spray and use that to apply and then set it at the end with the setting spray. It lasted a little bit longer, but it became very obvious to me that the major difference is that you need to use a eyeshadow primer with this to get it to have longevity, because the difference is night and day. And I will say you don't need to get, in my opinion, an expensive eyeshadow primer. The only eyeshadow primer that I own is this Milani eyeshadow primer. It's a drugstore product and it made the shadow last 2 to 3 times longer. It was just like night and day, the difference between the two. It was also a little, I was looking a little crazy that day because I used one of the darker tones, so you could really tell that one eye had like no color left on it and the other was like a reddish color. So I was looking a little crazy by the end of the day. It's funny because I actually didn't know if this eyeshadow primer was making much of a difference for me, but with this palette, you definitely could tell. So this palette does not have a lot of longevity, as they say, if you just use it on its own. You need to use an eyeshadow primer with it. So let's get that out of the way and talk about what this is like, assuming you are using an eyeshadow primer. The colors in here, as you saw from the swatches, are just beautiful. I've been applying it with my finger because that's what I like to do with shimmer shades. I think it gets the most impact, and I don't find it makes any difference in how the color applies between using my finger and using a brush dampened with setting spray. So I like to use my finger. That's just how I roll with these things. The look that I have on today is kind of a done up a little bit version of what I've been using as my everyday look from this palette. So let me zoom in and show you that, and then I will show you a couple other looks as well. So I've really been using this Blinc palette as a supplementary palette for my Modern Renaissance palette. What I'm about to explain though, you can really do with any kind of shadows in the same tone, because I'm not using any of the super special ones for this look. So what I have done here is that I used an eyeshadow primer, and then I used, this is going to be very close up, this shadow right here, which is the Warm Taupe, all over in my crease and then sort of darkened into the corner a bit. And that is sort of what gave me a little bit of depth in the crease. I then went into this very first shade here, the sort of lightest one, that is a very light shimmery creamy gold color, and I just patted that all over my eye out to about 2/3 out. After that was done, I went back to this palette and went into this very dark matte brown shade here, Cypress Umber, and I used that just to darken up the outside third of my eyelid a little bit, blend, 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 and then I used the Warm Taupe shade again to buff a little bit under my lower lash line, and then went back in with the Blinc shade to do around the inner corner of my eye, and that's all. And then put on some mascara and away I went. For my everyday going to work look, I would do the same thing, except I would not darken quite so much the outer corner, and I wouldn't do any of the smoking out under my eye, and not so much of the inner corner highlight, just because that is what kind of makes it a little bit more over the top and glam looking, which is not necessarily what I'm going for when I'm going to my office desk job. But this is sort of what I have been doing as my everyday look. Next we have look 2, which is about as far from subtle as you can get. It was an attempt to use the rose gold shade and that red shade in sort of a halo eye, reddish, vampy kind of look. So again, I used the Blinc palette in partnership with the Modern Renaissance palette, and I will tell you what I did. I will zoom you in a little bit and show you the look up close. So for this look, I started out with the shimmer shades. I took that rose gold shade in the middle of the Blinc palette and patted that all over my lid and up above the crease, so that when you're seeing this in real life, you see shimmer all the way around the eyes. I then took the second shade there, that red one, and patted it right in the middle to sort of give it a reddish depth to the look. And I also used the rose gold color in the inner corners of my eye and pulled it a little bit down the lash line on the bottom inner corners as well. With the Modern Renaissance palette, I went in with some of the mattes here. I did a combination of Buonfresco and Love Letter to sort of get something that was a little pink and a little purple, just to matte out the edges of the shimmer shades there. I used a bit of Venetian red, this shade down here, to deepen a touch in the outer corners and also to drag under my eyes to give it sort of that blown out look. and that was what I did overall. Then put on just a little bit of black eyeliner and some mascara and finished it off with sort of a deep red lip to give a very red, vampy, smoked out, blown out kind of eye look with a lot of shimmer. And I don't even think that the camera is doing justice to the amount of shimmer and jewel tones that are coming through on my lids in this look. For look number 3, we've gone for orange gold cat eye look. And once again, I've used Blinc in combination with Modern Renaissance, and I will zoom you in once again to show you what I did close up. So I used the trick of using a little bit of tape to get the edges of this clean, and then I used a combination of golden ochre as a base and burnt orange to start the smoky eye, sort of concentrating the colors at the edges and then pulling them to the inside. And then used a little bit of Relgar here, the very orange shade, just on the outside edge to give it that sort of orange look. I also pulled Relgar under my eye just a little bit on the lower lash line to give it a little bit of warmth underneath. But the main focus of this look is this shade here in the Blinc palette, the gold one. It was tapped with my finger all over the inside to give it this beautiful shimmer, as well as the inner corner and under the lash line here to just bring everything to life in a very shimmery, golden kind of way. So zooming you back out, this was the third look using the Modern Renaissance palette combined with the Blinc palette. So my final opinions on this are, it's a big thumbs up. I am a little disappointed at how expensive it is because, like, between this and this, you are paying more for these 5 shades than you are for this. But they're just all really good and they have so much impact to them that I think they are probably worth the price. If it doesn't fit in your budget, don't get it. But if you do, if you can save up for this, I think it's a really good one. I am super impressed with it and I am so happy that we got it in our BoxyCharm box this month. Let me know what you think of it down below, what you've been doing to play around with it. I've already had some people telling me a little bit of what they've been doing, but I try to respond to every comment that I get, so please leave a comment down below. If you have not yet subscribed and you want to see more videos and more reviews, that sort of thing, click on my face. I will make it appear right here, and I will also put one of my old videos up here so you can go and watch that. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you again soon. Bye.